So the movie started as a straight documentary, right? And I was going to focus on the peach industry and what a summer harvest looked like. And then I was getting ready to start filming, and my cousin, who's a writer, she's kind of like the memory keeper of the family because she's the oldest cousin. And she called me and we talked about how my grandpa had been a migrant worker coming from Mexico to California and going back, for most of his adult life. And she revealed that at some point he went missing for like 5 whole years. And when she means missing, it's like no word, no letter, nothing. Like nobody knew where he was. Did he die? Did he go to jail? Like what happened? And then one morning he just showed up and he never explained to anybody where he was. He's just like, I'm back and this is my family and I'm back. And so my grandpa had died and I was just like, man, I gotta figure out what happened here, And so I realized there's all these other guys who could have been my grandpa who are lonely and they're living alone and they're not 20, they're in their 60s. And why not make a movie about what if my grandpa had stayed? So that's how this movie started. So it feels kind of like a documentary because we used the same team, except we made a narrative film with a very lean script, just a few touches of this man's life. And we worked with real actors, like real farm workers as actors in the movie, to give it that feeling of like you're there,
What was your relationship like with your grandfather?
I loved my grandpa. I thought he was amazing, the wisest, coolest, chillest guy. I just really, really had this amazing guy in my mind. And I never thought that he did something like that. He wasn't even capable of that kind of stuff in my worldview. And when I learned that, it really shocked me. And that's why I knew I had to make the movie. And it sounds crazy to say, I made a movie to figure out my own life. But I think there's something that's worthwhile about sharing that experience because I discovered there's all these Lupes out there. My grandpa was not the only guy who disappeared. There's a lot of guys who still do that. And so it was just the film was a whole process of kind of getting in touch with him again, and and answering the questions without him being here in this poetic way or this journey of this movie.
So I'm going to ask one more question, which is how did you find Danny, the actor who plays Lupe? And if you could tell that story, that would be great.
Yeah, so I did a casting, like my family works in agriculture, so I did a casting and I went looking for these guys and I couldn't find the right guy. And then my dad, so the full story, which you haven't heard, is that I went to meet Danny's wife because the woman who plays his lover in the film is his actual wife in real life. And so that worked great, right? Once they were cast, the tension was very real. But she was living in that home that they're in the film, and I went looking for her husband, and she said, my husband is in Mexico, and I was really up against a deadline, and I said, well, I need to know if he's good or not. Do you have any pictures of him? And she had no pictures of Danny, except for his driver's license. And so she pulled out his driver's license, and it's a tiny, tiny photo, but you could see that mustache, and that serious face. And I was like, does he still look that serious? And does he still have the same, bigote? She's like, yes. And then I talked to him on the phone, and he was very excited. And his explanation was, I have nothing to do. I can't work anymore. And if you think I'm good for this, then I'll do it. And he showed up like 3 or 4 days before the movie started. And that was the first time I met him. And we ran with the movie. And so it was that trust when he said on the phone that he was open to a new adventure and that's what life was about. I knew that we would be able to work together. Yeah, and it did. It happened, and it worked really well.